Sandra Savignon is an expert on communicative language teaching. I consider her 1976 gem of a paper to be as relevant now as it was then, and her book, first edition 1983, a must-have guide to a communicative approach. More than 40 years ago, she published a now famous study as her doctoral dissertation, what she called a pedagogic experiment, essentially action research. It is a foundational study for a communicative approach and the start of the communicative movement in testing. In that 1971 study, beginner French university students spent one of the 5 class days on communication, that is, group discussion and making up performances for the class, as opposed to more structure-based classes or a culture lesson in the first language. To measure progress, students spent 4 minutes on each of 4 different activities: discussing a topic, interviewing someone, reporting on personal information, and narrating the actions of another person. These were given a 1 to 6 comprehensibility score, and the total number of correct facts expressed was counted. The communicative skills group did a lot better on these proficiency tests. Teachers think that a communicative approach sacrifices accuracy, but Savignon's students also performed slightly better on those measures that were more textbook grammar based. I think when I hear teachers say they don't have time to create acquisition-rich, communicative classrooms, it's because they haven't abandoned the expectations of a skill-building approach. Although any appearance of mastery in a skill-building classroom was only ever an illusion, maintained by controlled exercises and pseudo-communication. So what is communication? Savignon defined it as a continuous process of expression, interpretation, and negotiation of meaning, applying to both written and spoken language, and context-specific, depending on the roles of the participants, the situation, and the goal of the interaction. She wrote in 1976 that, above all, remember that for it to be real, communication must be a personalized, spontaneous event. It cannot be pre-programmed, but you can make it happen. Communicative competence is the umbrella term for the different types of knowledge that underlie communicative acts, including a mental grammar, social rules, coping strategies, and rules for how sentences combine. It's synonymous with proficiency. What are the principles of a communicative approach? Savignon identified the following guidelines. Language use is creative. It is context-specific. The teacher plays a wide range of roles in a wide range of situations. The needs and interests of the students are the starting point and the basis for materials. Text and discourse are the focus. Any output is meaning-based, and accuracy is not required nor expected in beginning stages. Savignon was optimistic that communication could dominate class time with teacher preparation and learner understanding of the distinction between language practice and language use. Savignon warned in 1976 that aligning with second language acquisition research would not happen unless we influenced teacher beliefs and feelings, saying that failure to do so will result in yet another wave of reform consisting of a new set of labels with nothing really changed. And unfortunately, that is what has happened. Schools nationwide have failed to develop proficiency of even survival skill levels. The Center for Applied Second Language Studies reported in 2010 that of 7,515 high school students tested in their 4th year in Spanish and French programs from 117 schools in 21 states and 56 districts, only 6% could speak at an intermediate mid-level. The study concluded that most students in U.S. programs do not reach proficiency levels that allow them to effectively communicate in the language. Due to its positive connotation, everyone wants to label their practice as communicative. But Savignon notes that grammar often remains the hidden agenda. Savignon refers to the problem as the rearview mirror syndrome. That is, when new approaches are viewed through an old lens. In this case, the new approach is misinterpreted as a better way to teach the textbook syllabus, and a better way to prepare for traditional discrete item tests. In essence, adopting a structure-to-meaning approach in which communicative activities are seen as an add-on to the old way of doing things. But a communicative approach is an entirely new system. Proficiency is a new goal, which is admittedly not academic. Savignon saying that, indeed, the predicament of the modern language teaching profession is that academic credit is earned and diplomas are awarded for the acquisition of skills that, in many cases, are not so well developed as those of a 10-year-old child. A new argument for including second language programs needs to be made. Savignon saying our concern for respectability has made us prisoners of academia. A new approach requires a new type of teacher. Savignon telling teachers to try, just for the moment, to forget you are a language teacher and to listen instead as an interested participant. A new approach also means rethinking teacher-student relationships. Students and teachers have to want to communicate with each other. That necessitates community and relationship building. Savignon saying, the rapport students feel with the teacher as well as with classmates may be crucial in determining the success or failure of the venture. Savignon observed that greater group rapport was established in her study by allowing the use of English in the communicative skills group. And Savignon understood the need for new tests as good as anyone, having said all of the following. I put the development of new kinds of tests at the top of the list, because of the importance of tests in shaping all that we do and think in the classroom. If we teach for communicative competence, we have to test for communicative competence. The tasks that appear in a test should resemble the kinds of tasks at which learners should be working in the classroom. Savignon pointed out that, although test evaluation procedures may vary, in real-life communication it is, of course, always the general impression that prevails. In other words, teachers need not think less of holistic, subjective ratings. I would add that those tests ought to respect the context and level of the learner in order to assess students where they are now and not where we want them to be. I think that if we can make more communicative type testing a common classroom practice, then perhaps the language teaching field can finally do more than pay lip service to a communicative approach.